Once you find yourself in conflict with a narcissist, it's a virtual guarantee they're going to start playing head games with you. That's why I put together a new course. It's very extensive called Anger Games. I'm going to teach you how to manage anger and conflict with a narcissist. There's a link below that's going to show you how to register, and I hope that you find it to be very insightful. The longer you spend time with a strongly narcissistic individual, and especially when you're strongly under their influence, they can be insufferable. I mean, how many times have you thought, this person is so stubborn, or they're unwilling to receive input, they can be chronically agitated, they're entitled, they're disinterested in you, they have to be in total control, they have this attitude of dominance and superiority over you, and it can prompt you to ask questions like, how do you justify being so rude? How do you justify being so willing to use and exploit and manipulate other individuals? Why are you so insensitive? And what's this about your egotism? I mean, do you really think that you're the center of the universe? Why are you so unwilling to blend and to acknowledge the legitimacy of that person right there in front of you? In other words, who do you think you are? Now, it goes without saying, but when narcissists live with these ingredients that I'm mentioning and plenty more, it illustrates that they are operating with a psychological emptiness. They're trying to compensate for something, and much of it has to do with their feelings of inadequacy. And it's glaringly obvious that they have an unstable emotional structure, and yet they persist in trying to be the better person. And when I say better, I don't mean in a good sense, the dominant kind of an individual. And when you see this kind of pattern that plays out over and over in the way that these individuals treat people, it illustrates that there's one glaringly obvious truth that they choose not to pay attention to. It's like, don't even make me have to think about this. And yet this is one of the most basic things that each one of us can ponder. And that obvious truth is simply this. You are a flawed mortal. Now, it's so glaringly obvious, like I say, and yet narcissists is like, don't talk to me like that. I don't like thinking along those lines. But I want to take a look at those two words, flawed and mortal, and I want to get an understanding of what that tells us about the human condition and how it fits in with where the narcissist is. And then I want us to see if we can have a much healthier response when we think about that very concept. You are a flawed mortal. Now, when we look at the narcissist and we just simply say you're flawed, we're not being harsh and judgmental. We're just simply being honest about the human condition. What we're going to say is these individuals in their flawed nature clearly treat other individuals with no regard for their dignity or value. In other words, they're quite willing to be insulting and invalidating toward other individuals. That tells me something's wrong down on the inside of their psyche. Or we can say also, as part of their flawed nature, their emotions can be quite unstable. They can be, their emotions can be easily rattled or contingent upon the reactions of other individuals, and that sets them up to being very prone towards anger or contempt or anxiety when you don't give them the right kind of reactions. In their flawed nature, they also illustrate that they're not nearly as brilliant as they try to portray themselves to be. And that can actually be an understatement. And as a result, they make many miscalculations, and they're not nearly as insightful and wisdom-based as they want you to think that they are. As part of their flawed nature, we can look at them and their deep history and say, well, you have a long history of many broken relationships, and not all of them can be everybody else's fault. I mean, you are the common denominator in all of that. Can't you be willing to say, well, you know, something's going on inside of me that apparently is contributing to some of these breakdowns? No, instead they become judgmental and they hold on to their criticisms towards other individuals. They're the ones out there that's making my life miserable. Okay. In their flawed nature, their logic or their reasoning is not nearly as strong as they want you to think that it is. They can sometimes be real illogical, and when you try to reason with them, it becomes clear. Clear thinking is not part of their makeup. They're stubborn. They can be closed-minded. Okay, and you can see that that the flawed elements are just there, glaringly obvious. And then you'd want to ask, well, how is it that you can see all of the flaws of anybody else that's in front of you, but you refuse to see it within yourself? And that's what I mean when I say it's insufferable. What is it that makes you so special? Then let's take a look at that word mortality. That takes us even further down the path. Not only is each person flawed, but we're each mortal. When we say a person is mortal, we'll start with the basic. You're going to die. And that has a whole lot of implication for how you live. There's kind of a paradox that they don't catch on to, and that is the person who is going to live life most successfully is someone who's prepared to know what happens when they die. And you realize, okay, my time here on this earth is limited. I want to make the most of it. And so when a narcissist says, I don't want to look at that, do not make me examine my mortality. Basically, what they refuse to acknowledge is, hey, guess what? You're not the ultimate. It's not like you have the final answers. There are many other people that have lived millennia before you and presumably millennia after you. You're not the ultimate. You're limited. You're temporary. Do you understand that? You're temporary. And I don't mean that in a demeaning kind of way, but you will be replaced. And the world is going to go on with or without your existence. And narcissists, it's like, that's too heady for me. Or what's worse is they can say, oh, I've got all that stuff figured out. And they can have pious and false presumptions about how they're tight with the Creator and all of this. And it's like, no, me and God, we're so tight. I've got the whole thing figured out. Some of them go that direction. Now, when an individual implies, I don't want to look at my flaws, and I sure don't want to examine my mortality and what that means, it tells us an awful lot about what's going on inside their personality. First, it says you've got a really fragile ego. You have a fear of being powerless. You're too insecure to face your insecurities. You're too insecure to face your finiteness. You don't want to have to look at that. It also implies, taking straight into this, you're living with a whole lot of denial. It's like you're unwilling to admit, I'm in the same predicament as all the rest of the people on this earth. In other words, my like I say, my time is limited and I've got a certain amount of influence. It's not nearly as large as what I want to think that it is, but in many respects, I'm just like everyone else. When you say that, it's like, no, don't make me have to think like that. It also illustrates that a narcissist's defenses have led them astray. In other words, the more defensive they are, the more unwilling they are to receive input. What they're saying is, I refuse to be taught. I refuse to stretch my thinking and go deeper into whatever the meaning of life actually is. In addition, then we can say that their analytical thinking is either distorted or non-existent. They don't want to have to think on that deeper level. Where do I fit in the grand scheme of things? Because in their mind, they're thinking, well, where I fit is at the top of the stack. That's where I fit. And again, it's like they don't want to have to admit, no, you're limited just like the rest of us. And then we can say that the more they feel like they have to have the final word, the more it illustrates that they're just living with a God complex. It's like, well, I want to be the one that says the way it is, and don't make me have to acknowledge anything beyond me. I don't go there. Now, you can see that when a person refuses to examine that core truth, you're a flawed mortal, it illustrates that they are deeply committed to power dynamics. They're deeply committed to dominance. They must feel like they're invincible when in fact they're not. They must feel superior. They have a disregard for accountability, and they are quite prone towards having false displays of success. They'll look at all sorts of shallow things that says, I'm a somebody and I've really got it all figured out. Now, here on Team Healthy, one of the things we can do is we can say, you know what, I'm going to openly examine my flaws and I'm going to understand my limitations that go with my mortality. I'm going to live with that. Therefore, I'm going to make my allotted time on this planet count. I'm going to ponder very carefully the meaning of life, of a life that's well lived. In other words, I want to know what love and kindness and caregiving is. I'm going to be grateful for what I do have, and I'm going to be thankful for the things that are in my life that are right and good. I'm going to be modest in my self-assessment. I'm not going to take myself too seriously. Obviously, we're going to have self-care and assertiveness and all like that, but I'm going to acknowledge, not everything is going to go according to what I say. I'll be teachable. I can ask for help, and I know that I want to be esteemed. Therefore, I'm going to be willing to offer you esteem. Now, when you say things like that to a narcissist, they may say something like, "Oh, I'm not perfect," or "Oh, I've got all that stuff figured out." But then the ultimate thought that they really carry is, "I'm so glad I'm not like the rest of you mortals," although they wouldn't say it quite like that. And so my response is, I'm unique, and so are you. But at the same time, let's stimulate each other, knowing that we all are in this life together. There's an interconnectedness that we share. Please, let's acknowledge that, and then let's figure out what that means. The more we can learn to live collegially, the more we can live with harmony. Then we can say, yeah, in my flawed nature, in my mortal nature, I acknowledge yours, and I acknowledge mine. Let's work together to make the best of what we have in our time that is allotted to us. Now, I hope that videos like this can force you to think about who you are, and hopefully it helps you understand where that other person is, or perhaps is not. If you haven't already hit the subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so, and we'll keep more videos coming towards you. I truly appreciate it when you allow me to be on your growth journey with you. Now, many of you, as you engage with individuals who are very insufferable and they're very difficult, you might think, I could use some therapy. And I've been sponsored. One of my sponsors is betterhelp.com. They're a whole team of licensed professional therapists, and all you have to do is go through the link that we have below and answer a few questions, and then you can select a therapist that you can work with, and it can be so helpful for you to work with that individual about finding meaning in your life, and then figuring out what to do with these insufferable individuals who are not going to join you in that effort. But please, as the need is there, get the help. Go through the link and get the help that you need. Now, you know that I've also put together online classes, courses. They're in my website under the courses and the workshops, etc. We have each course has at least 25 teaching videos, and each video has handouts and guided questions, anger games, this is me, ready, set, connect, free to be. Go on the website and check them out, because I think you'll find them to be quite helpful. It'll require a lot of work for you, but I hope it can be quite helpful for you. Also, on my website, we have access to my webinars. They're 90-minute PowerPoint presentations that have been quite popular, along with access to my articles, my books, my podcasts. So we have plenty of resources there. You know what? You're flawed. You're also mortal. And it's like, yeah, I get that. And that just holding on to that thinking has a lot of implication about how you're going to live in the time that you have. Narcissists is like, I'm too busy being self-important. I'm too busy trying to be above everybody else to have to look at something like that. It's too inconvenient. Okay, that's where they are. But I'm hoping you can have a sense that says, I really do know who I am and where I'm going and what I'm wanting to accomplish in a healthy way around here. Commit to it. And as you do, I'm hoping it can take you down the path towards personal steadiness, and ultimately you can get deeper and deeper in your quest toward finding peace.